getting kids, parents, adults, whomever off of drugs. The fentanyl crisis is such an epidemic, one that I'm very passionate about, one that has affected my life personally. And Pat, the CEO of Rockin' Prevention, has asked me for an interview that's going to be part of his documentary, and I am so excited to bring you guys into the studio while I'll be interviewed. Just so you know, please still comment, share, follow, share this post, and I will get to everyone's questions and comments after the show because I won't be able to do it live. And I'll answer all of your questions, and I'll put in the link to where you can get connected with Rockin' Prevention. This was a perfect fit for myself because I am in the business of preventing people from making the same mistakes either I have made or other people have made in my life so that we can save a life. So stay tuned.
I want you to start off, and this hopefully is going to be viewed by hundreds of thousands of kids and parents. And we'd like you to share a little bit about yourself, how you successfully got through middle school and high school without using alcohol or other drugs. And just kind of tell your story about the kind of habits you were able to develop as a result of being clean and sober through high school and that. And then tell the rest of your story, how this unlikely gal ends up in a situation like you ended up with.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and if my story can help save a life or two or help parents save their child's life, then this was such a blessing. So growing up, I was the second oldest of 5 children, and we were a very tight-knit, close Italian family. So I enjoyed being at home. I had friends. I had a lot of friends because I'm a very social being. I love people, always have. And I realized very early in life that I was different. I wasn't like everyone else, and at first I accepted that, but then as I was getting into middle school, I was realizing that I was losing friends because my friends didn't like that I was different and that I didn't do the same things that they did. And what I mean by that is I was interested in learning. I was a sponge. I wanted to absorb all the knowledge that I could get in life, whether that's coming home from school and doing extra homework, whether that was reading books that my mother had laying around on the coffee table that were self-help books, whether that was, I just love to read, I love to write, and I love to work. And so I would do little odds and end jobs after school to make money, to be productive. And when I'd share those stories with my friends, they were like, wait, like you're not taking naps, you're not watching TV, you're not watching cartoons, you're not playing video games. And I said, no, I'm not laying around at all. I've been running at school all day. But when I get home, I don't want to be a couch potato. I don't want to veg out. I want to do more. And so I realized that I was different. And so I had a choice to make. And the choice was, do I want to fit in like everybody else and just sort of blend in with life? Or do I want to let my sparkle and my shine and my enthusiasm and my drive kind of just go? And I decided to just let myself go and be who I was and see what I would attract and who I would repel. And I very quickly learned that like attracts like. If you're a good person, you will attract good people. If you're a bad person, you will attract negative, dark, depressed, mean-spirited people. And I lost a lot of friends. And I lost people who really wanted to hang out on the weekends and cause trouble, make crank phone calls back in the day when there was dinosaurs. When I was young, they would make crank phone calls or ding dong ditch, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to create havoc on anyone's life. I really always wanted to be a blessing to other people and shine my light. And I lost friends because I wasn't willing to partake in their stupidity, and so I lost friends. And then I asked myself, do you care that you're not fitting in, that you've lost friends, that you're kind of on an island all alone? And I realized I didn't, because I knew very young in middle school that I was a leader. And I asked myself, what am I going to do with this ability to lead others. I felt like, even though I didn't have a following yet, I didn't have anybody other than my brother and my sisters following me, because they wanted to be like me. I didn't have a following yet, but I knew if I did the right thing and said the right things and was an example, that I could get people to follow me. So I started asking kids in middle school, do you want to work after school? Well, do you want money? I said, do you want money? And of course, everybody wanted money. And I said, well, come work for me. Well, I didn't have a business, so I thought, well, I'll start a candy store. So I had a candy store where I asked my mom and my dad to go and buy me candy that the kids ate, that I ate, and I was going to sell it on the weekends in my garage. And some of my friends thought the idea was great, and some of my friends thought the idea was stupid because they all wanted to sleep in. So I would put out flyers, and I was making money, and I had a couple people that followed me, and most of the people thought it was stupid, and they, wanted to sleep in or do the bad things on the weekend, and then they were in trouble because their parents found out. And so I realized that my behavior was creating a lifestyle, and I liked that lifestyle. That lifestyle actually got me accolades with my parents, and I was the type of person, and still am, that I like to please people. And I liked pleasing my parents, that I was a good kid, I was being productive, I was being respected in the community as a leader, and I was also mentoring my younger siblings and other people. And so my parents gave me a lot of pats on the back, and they said, you're different, and keep tapping into your differences. Well, then I started realizing, now we're getting more into high school, that my differences were going now towards the habits that my friends were doing: drinking, smoking, and having sex. Back in the day, when there was dinosaurs, we didn't have drugs as much, or I didn't know about it. They were there, I'm sure, because parents were doing drugs. Parents were pill popping, and some of the kids would steal their parents' pills. But my association was hearing about alcohol, hearing about smoking, hearing about having sex, and I wanted no part of any of that. And it could have been that my upbringing was, my parents were very strict. My parents had their eye on us very closely. We were not allowed to run free and run wild. My parents, as I said, were old-fashioned in the sense that ladies behaved like ladies, so I wasn't going to be able to tramp around. Not that I'd ever, but it's not like they were not involved. My father was a traveling salesman, and my mother's job was to make sure that we were all well-disciplined, and that was really a priority of hers. So I started noticing my friends drinking on the weekends, smoking on the weekends, and coming back to school on Monday and talking about the parties, the alcohol and the smoking, and then the sex. And I said, why? Why are you doing that? And they said, why aren't you? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't want to feel poorly. I don't want to wake up and waste a day because, I wanted to make money. I wanted to read the books. I wanted to exercise. I had all these habits that I wanted to do. And I figured if I had alcohol going through my system, I wasn't going to be able to do that. Smoking, I have perfectly white teeth. I didn't want to ruin my teeth. I didn't want to ruin my skin. I didn't want to be addicted to nicotine. And I was afraid to become addicted to anything. And that could have been, I could have had alcoholism in my genes and I didn't know it, but I didn't want to take a chance. And so I just started absorbing habits that were leading to being successful in life. And I noticed it way back in middle school. And then I really started noticing in high school because my grades were very, very good. Because I wasn't inebriated. I wasn't feeling guilty that I had sex with a boy that I was never going to have a relationship with. I had no self-doubt. I had no insecurities of not having self-worth. I was always a very confident young lady that knew that my brain was a gift from God, and I didn't want to blow it by doing things that wouldn't be good for me. And so I started sharing that with friends, and some of my friends thought I was a goody-goody, and I somehow made them feel inferior because they weren't living that lifestyle, which was not my intention. My intention was just to teach you that I feel great every Saturday and Sunday. I feel worthy of a husband that's worth something because I never had sex. I don't smoke, so my breath never stinks. You know, I was just giving examples, and some of them loved it and were like, well, how do you have self-control? And I realized very young that I was a person of a very strong willpower, and I was a person that had a lot of self-control. And that was from behaviors that I realized you receive perks for being good. You feel better the better you behave. And life just kept presenting examples of, you know, teachers volunteering me for projects because I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and came to school and wanted to learn. The community needed a spokesperson for projects, summer garage sales, and I was like the one because I was the leader. And so I just kept seeing that the better I behaved, the more blessings and opportunities presented themselves. And so I behaved very well throughout middle school, throughout high school, and then I actually behaved very well up until going off to college. And I was very close to my family, as I mentioned, and I didn't want to leave the nest. I was afraid to leave the nest because those were my parents and my siblings, and we were so tight. And so I wasn't ready. And I think I was a little, I don't want to say immature, but I was very naive. I wasn't, let's pick it back up. So Brigham Young University, I thought a Mormon university, I would be safe from drugs, alcohol, sex. It's going to be good people who all signed the word of wisdom, and I was going to be off in an island with about 35,000 other great, emotionally stable, good people. And I was naive, no doubt. And so I got out there, and so here comes this good girl from Pennsylvania who lived her life well and tried to do what was right, and a very sheltered life, as I mentioned. And I get out there, and in that sea of 35,000 individuals, I find the one bad boy that was gonna put his aim and go, she's my target, and the rest is history. The rest we're gonna teach lessons and save lives. But I've asked myself, because I'm writing a book about this, I've asked myself, what was it? What was it in him? Jeff was his name. Besides being tall, dark, and handsome, what was it that attracted this good girl to this bad boy? On the surface, he was wonderful. He came from a great family. He partied. That was it. That was his thing. He had a lot of not affairs. He was very active sexually with women. He drank and he was doing drugs, and I knew all of that. But I wanted to help him. There was something in me, and there still is, that I want to fix people, and I want to save you, and I want to help you. And a lot of women that are going to watch this documentary are going to be in the same situation or have been in the same situation that I'm in. And so I want to be honest with you. I want to share with you everything that you want to know so that we can help save some lives. So I realized immediately that this didn't make any sense, that Jeff wasn't right for me, that the red flags were going off like crazy, you know. But I thought, well, I'm not going to marry the guy. I'm going to help him. I'm going to just be his friend. And I was his friend for years, until it's like a drain, you know, it's spinning and spiraling, and it's, you know, you're going down it a little bit, but you don't realize you're going down the drain. And so I'd help him, and then he'd do well. And then I was like, you know, you are good. You are really good at this. And then we'd have a slip up, and then I'd feel like I'd own that slip up because I should have watched him more, or cared for him more, or taught him better, or whatever. And then I realized that other people's diseases and other people's, if you want to call it weaknesses, troubles, whatever the word you want to use, you don't have to own that. I did everything that I could while we were dating to help him. Actually, I mean, I don't know how we'll get to I will have to transition. So I dated him and realized I didn't really know how it happened, but he asked me to marry him, and I didn't want to say no. I knew he wasn't right for me, but how was I going to tell a guy that I'd been coaching and mentoring and loving and trying to help and saving and rescuing and building up, and how was I going to say, no, you're not worth me, even though, I didn't think he was. So I married him. And the morning of my wedding, I was vomiting profusively, and I'm a woman who's terrified to vomit. And I was vomiting profusively. And I remember hearing in my head, this is a sign. Don't do it. But I couldn't get out because I had committed to him, his family, who I loved, my family, who spent a fortune on this wedding, all of my family that flew in, and I didn't want to let people down. What was I going to say? Like, oh my gosh, it just dawned on me today, God's giving me signs. I'm profusively sick. I'm vomiting. Like, red flag, red flag, red flag, you stupid woman. But I did it. And I married him, and we had a beautiful wedding. And on our honeymoon, there were red flags. And I just felt like I was in, and I was loyal, and I was going to help. All the way, I was going to fix him. I was going to fix this poor soul that I loved, that was hurt, that was damaged, that was struggling. And I knew, and anyways, so we were married, and there's a lot in between, but we were married for 8 years. I dated him for 4. And when I had my second child, she was like not even a month old, I realized I had to go because things were just getting out of control. I knew I was capable of doing it. I had the strength, I had the smarts, I had the willpower that nobody was going to break. I knew I would be able to give my children. And I was just so saddened that there went a perfect life, a perfect human being. Like physically, the family, was so fantastic. He had it all. Like, I know people don't have much, but this man had it all. And he had me. And he had 2 beautiful children. But it wasn't enough. And that's when I realized the power of this disease. And that's when I realized what one try of it, one taste of it could do. That's why I was always so afraid to do it and steered away from it. And so now I have to ask myself, what can I do with the platform that I have been given, being a national known TV star? What can I do? And I can just educate people on Jeff's story so that, he can be an example to others that, that stay away from it. It's not worth it in the end. Sometimes I tap into his power up above and think, come on, help me with this project, and I feel like he'll help, bless it, because he had to live it. But I always say to parents, because I know that you might be wanting to ask me this, so I don't want to jump ahead, but how I treat my children when I am at liberty to offer them drugs for their illnesses, and when the doctor gets the wisdom teeth out. Now guess what? I got a prescription for hydrocodone. Do you want to know how I handle that?
Let's hear it.
Okay. This is how I think parents can help, Pat. Until they're out of your home. When the children leave the nest, you just have to get on your knees and pray that you did your job. And sometimes,
That's true.
And sometimes you don't. You do your job and they don't turn out the way you want them to. You know what? They're in God's hands now. I mean, you can keep trying, but when my children were in the home and I was still their guardian and caring for them, they'd get a surgery. Let's say, for example, take out the wisdom teeth. Everybody's got their wisdom teeth out. Well, I don't, but I am special. Just kidding. But so the doctors give you a prescription for hydrocodone, okay? Well, come on now. My kids are tough. My son was a hockey player. My daughter's a tough cookie. She broke her arm and never even cried. Okay, you think she really needs hydrocodone? No. We'll start with Tylenol. We'll start with Advil. So unlike my girlfriends or my other friends that immediately go get the prescription filled, no. Let's see how we do with Tylenol. Okay, well, so she doesn't do so well with the Tylenol. Let's piggyback that with the Motrin. I'm not quick to give that. You know why? We might have the same disease within the same veins because half of them are him.
That's right.
I don't trust. So then, get out the tonsils. Oh, that's a bigger drug. Now we're getting serious. Now we get real drugs that are going to knock you out so you don't have to talk and feel how hard the tonsils hurt. No, I'm sorry. I'm monitoring that like a hawk. I told Curtis, here's the deal. I don't want my child to be in pain, but I'm monitoring this like a hawk. If she doesn't need it or he doesn't need it, they're not getting it. So I don't get the prescriptions filled. I know one time Miles was calling me wanting the hydrocodone for some stupid little sniff or something, sniffle. No. Well, the pharmacist wants to talk to you. He put the pharmacist on. I said, don't fill it. We don't fill for swollen glands. Well, he's got mono. That's okay. Tylenol. Well, you know why? I don't know what's running through his veins. You try that once, next thing you know, where are you? So I believe that parents can do more, can watch. It takes work. It takes work to parent. And I'm not saying that the parents that give the drugs are bad parents. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying be a little more careful. So because I haven't had anything other than maybe one Percocet when I had a baby, C-section, that hurt, took it. I'm not saying that I'm pure, but I'm saying that this is what I'm saying. If I take an Advil for a headache, it's gone. I don't need the Percocet. I don't need the, what's the big drug? The oxycodone. Oh, God forbid. I don't need that for a headache because Advil works. Motrin works. Oh, the cramps are so horrible. Oh, please, child, go take a Midol. Okay, so that's how I believe parents can do more. You have to monitor what they're putting in their mouth while they're under your care and they still listen. That's what I'm doing.
You're very aware of the first use and how that impacts a child.
I'm terrified of the first use. How that impacts a child could be deadly. It was for Jeff. I mean, this was a man that had willpower. He had stamina. I would have never fallen in love with a weakling. This man had drive. He was a leader. He was confident. He had strength. Well, not when it came to an opioid. Not when it came to alcohol.
What do you want kids and parents to know about?
And hold on one second, too. I need to lose our daylight help.
Thank you.
It's just getting a little bit shadier.
Oh, well, we know he's shady. Just kidding, Pat. Oh.
I think we'll talk about like first use and why that's so important, particularly, alcoholism and smoking weed, that's one thing, but heroin, opioids, fentanyl, that's a whole new league of stuff. So
yeah, go for it.
Talk about
Okay, just make sure I didn't have another here.
Talk about what you want kids and parents to know about, stopping yourself before, try to avoid first use of heroin, opioids, and fentanyl. Why is that so important?
I think it's so important just to never touch the hard drugs because it's deadly. You can take it for once. I've heard stories, Pat, that you take it once, you love the feeling, and the next thing you know, you're selling the house, you're selling your belongings, you're selling your soul, your body to get it. It's so addicting that it's so preventative if you just stay away from it. I believe it's kind of like fearing it. Have so much fear in it that you will avoid it at all costs. I'm here to tell you, I've had drugs right underneath my nose. I've had people offer me marijuana, people offer me pills, people offer me cocaine. I've never had anybody offer me heroin. I've had the drugs, like right here. Come on, Tana. Yeah. Oh, you're energetic. What would this make you be like if you ever did it? Jill, you'd be a hoot. I'd love to see you. No. Why? It's not that I wasn't looking for a good time, but I'm terrified. One time you snort one line, I'm hooked. You do one thing of meth, you insert, you take the oxycodone for a surgery or not, for fun. to numb out. I'm addicted. I'm not the same Tana. And also, I can't help people because I would feel like I'm a hypocrite. If I was over here, sitting here, having this conversation with you, but honestly, popped 2 pills before I arrived to the studio, I am the biggest hypocrite. I would feel like I would be exuding nothing but lies, deceit. I couldn't be authentic. My passion for this in helping people get off of drugs, it wouldn't come out because I'm a liar, I'm a hypocrite, I'm a user. So I feel like if you stay away from all that, you can then spread the message too that it's bad, stay away from it because look at what good has happened in my life, and maybe that's attributed because you've been drug free. I don't know, but I just beg people to be so in my experience in life is, if I'm here to help a female say don't date somebody who you know does drugs, that's the beginning. If I'm here to talk to the drug addict who thinks that this is okay, I would say, I promise you, if you change your lifestyle and change your behaviors and change your habits, I will promise you right now, I'll bet you right now, $100, your life will be better if you're off of your drugs. I'll bet you. So it's just a matter of how bad do people want a better life. And in today's day and age, people don't want to live life clean because it's a hard world out there. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of people competing for your time, your money, your energy, your wallet, whatever it may be. And you got to be strong and you got to have your armor on to go out and fight the warriors that are out there to bring you down. And think about it, if you're on drugs, you're halfway there. It's like your tank is half empty. Well, my tank is full. I'm going to go further. If we have to go from here to California, let's go. You're clean, your tank is full. I'm clean, my tank is full. And we have 2 other people that are on drugs. Let's say one's on drugs and one's completely wasted. And their tanks are half full. And it's a race. We're getting there first. Don't you want to win the race? And that's kind of how I approach life, and I beg people to turn the other way, and life is so much better because I've seen the alternative, and the alternative is death. Mm-hmm. And not good. Families ruined, and parents devastated, and siblings hurt, and kids always wondering, what was my dad like? And wives going, what could it have been? What could our life been or whatever, regret. And not on our end because we didn't do the drugs. And so I feel for all the people that are affected, but this is like a spiral that it takes everybody down in their path. Yeah. And so personally in my life, I try to help, but I don't associate with it.
When we first started talking, we talked a lot about life skills for success and how much you believed in yourself, and you truly were a very authentic kid. You know what I mean? You're just hell-bent for success, wanting to do the right thing. You wanted to please your parents. You wanted to be very successful, and you have been very successful.
Thank you.
And you've also talked about the opposite of that, just where drugs, alcohol can have you end up at the end of the tracks, where oftentimes people do die. With heroin, opioids, and fentanyl, I think it was in 2016 we began to see the deaths skyrocket because the heroin is now being laced with fentanyl, and it just takes so little fentanyl in the heroin to kill a person.
Yeah.
It's just, these drugs, it's a new set of drugs, and people need to know that. Back in the day, back in the 60s and 70s, you'd see a stereotypical heroin addict, dope sick and really miserable and trying to come down from being high on heroin. And today, and heroin addicts could last a long time without dying.
Yeah.
But today, it ain't that way. People are using, and we're having so many young people die that, according to the Center for Disease Control, the actual, length of life has gotten reduced. Kids are dying younger and younger from heroin, opioids, and fentanyl, and it's actually brought down the national averages of how long people live. It's just an insane drug.
It's an epidemic.
And it's insane.
An epidemic. Well, because the kids are getting it younger, trying it. It's laced with crazy stuff that nobody's, no scientist is making this. A drug dealer is like, yeah, I don't care what's in it. Let's give them rat poisoning, and then they're dying.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting it younger. It's everywhere. Every school's got drugs now. Like I said, when I was growing up in the 80s, I didn't see drugs in my high school. I went to an all-Catholic high school, so maybe we were more sheltered, of course. But it wasn't as prevalent. Marijuana, maybe cocaine. But now it's terrifying. I tell my children all the time, please, gosh, stay away from anything. Don't try anything. Kids are popping pills now. It's so horrible. It's so sad. And I think you were going to ask me a question, but we got off on that. You were saying I was successful, and then I saw the other side of it, and yeah, I saw you can be a success, but you can only be a success if you're really living your true authentic self. That's why I'm excited about my new programs teaching kids life skills for success. And I believe it will be blessed because it's all from an authentic place of goodness versus, people trying to do their job. I had a guy, actually, I was asking him, I ran into a guy that used to work for me on some of the back end stuff of my business. And he never was that good. And I finally had to fire him. And I was more or less like, why couldn't I count on you? I'd ask you to do something. I'd send you the email, follow up, and you never did it. You never put it up on my website properly. And yet, what was going on? And he goes, I got to be honest with you. He said, I kind of felt guilty working for you, but I was completely addicted to cocaine. He said, when you were sending me those emails, I'd been up the whole entire night, and he goes, I couldn't do the job. I was addicted to cocaine. And here I was working for you, squeaky clean, to build your website. And I was like, duh, I never knew it. So how can you do your job and be a success when you're all messed up? You can't. So success attracts like. People that are clean, that are clear-headed, that are blue, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to take on the day, and people that are on drugs are getting by halfway, half-assed through life, barely keeping their job, barely keeping their relationships, barely making a difference. Actually, they're not making a difference at all. And so I ask your audience, which way do you want to be? Do you want to be of the light, or do you want to be of the dark? Because of the dark, not a lot of great things happen in the dark. Look at the day. Plants bloom, flowers grow, birds sing, the sun's shining, leaves blow. Beautiful things happen in the day. And so I just feel so blessed that I had the willpower, I had the strength, I had whatever I had that was the cocktail that kept me good. I had parents that believed in me and that encouraged me and did the work. Parenting is work. And my parents did the work, mostly my mother, because my dad traveled a lot. But did the work and put in the time to say, no, my eyes are on you, and my eyes are on my kids. And
if we could wrap this up, I would like you to talk directly to young women and what is your greatest concern, or what would be the strongest message that you have for young women in today's society?
It's a great question. My message to young women is really simple. Without self-confidence, self-worth, everything else crumbles. And I do believe that the space where your self-worth and your self-confidence and your self-esteem and knowing that you are amazing is in between your legs. It's like from your heart down here. And in between there is the safe zone, is the spot that is your soul, is your spirit, and is your power. And when women give themselves to men at a young age, or really, I don't care what age it is, but really, if he's not going to be your husband, you're wasting yourself, your soul, your spirit on a human being that it's not worth it. So I'm a very big believer, and I teach this to young women, that be very cautious to not fall into the traps of doing what society says is cool, and that is having premarital sex. That is having unloved, like sex for no reason. That is giving your soul and yourself and your spirit, a piece of you, to a man, a boy, or whatever it is, that never is going to count. And so I believe that your core, which is this vicinity, is your power and is your source. And is like, it'd be like if you came up to me right now and punched me as hard as you can, and I know you won't, or I'd kick your butt. No, just kidding.
Probably.
I would not. I'm not that silly. But if you were to come and freaking punch me as hard as you can right here in this source, I'd hurt your hand. I guarantee you I'd hurt your hand. Because this is so tight and it is so strong and nothing's going to penetrate it. So my advice to ladies, young women, girls, young women, and young ladies is don't give your source away. Don't be having sex with guys in high school that aren't even going to be on your radar. Then in college, who are they? You have given them your most precious gift, your virginity, your spirit, your soul. And what did they do with it? Nothing. Not to say they're supposed to do anything with it. Maybe they BS'd you that night to get it or whatever, but now it's gone. Now you go meet the man of your dreams, my Curtis, my prince. And if I had been promiscuous throughout my entire life, maybe Curtis wouldn't have wanted me. But I will tell you this, he shared this with me. He said, knowing that you had only had one sexual partner your entire life, Tana, and I was, I think, 36 when I married Curtis. He goes, that was very attractive to me. That was very appealing to me. That your first experience, sexual partner, was your husband, Jeff. Well, guess what? I had men ask me, you don't think in high school I was a catch? Come on now. I had boyfriends. I had a wonderful boyfriend, Bobby Fryer. I dated him for 2 years. I loved him. He loved me. You don't think he wanted me? He did. But he was so kind and he was so sweet. And when I told him I was saving myself for marriage, he never pressured. I mean, he pressured a little, but he got the message loud and clear. Right here, you ain't getting through, buddy.
Yeah.
And you ain't getting down here for sure.
Yeah.
And so my message is, stay pure. Don't give yourself away. Women give themselves away. And then they look at themselves like, okay, well, I had him and him and him. God, I'm still in college and I'm like on 4 or 5. Well, are you being smart? And I almost feel like this space has only got so much strength for so many blows in life. You know, like I had that being a single mom, whew, that was a big blow. You know, and God forbid, I gotta save it for God forbid a child gets sick. God forbid a husband gets sick. God forbid I get cancer. I gotta be ready. It's gotta be, this source has gotta be strong. And then when you give it away, you're weakening it. And then you know what you think? You go, I'm worthless. You know why? I'm a whore. Or you don't think that because you're not obviously that smart, and you go, okay, I'm promiscuous. I have a reputation for being a little loosey-goosey down here, if you know what I'm saying. Guys talk about me because, you know, I have sex with every guy that I date. They call me, and now your reputation. So now you lower your self-esteem. Then when you lower your self-esteem, you lower your standards. Oh God, now when we lower our standards, guess what? I'll do anything to fit in. Okay, then what happens when you do anything to fit in? You marry somebody not good for you. Oh, or you do a drug. Oh, or you pop a pill. Now what? It's a spiral. It happens so fast. So my advice to the ladies would be tighten it up. Don't let anybody get in there unless you know they are the one. And just have the confidence that you know that you are capable of leaving in the middle of the night with 2 small babies, moving into your mom and dad's basement with really nothing, and you can reinvent yourself to the person that the President of the United States says, you are a star. That's really all my hope would be.
Nice. And you have a son. What would you say to all the young men that would be watching this?
My son has learned through my experience that you don't take women's source away easily. Like, I'm not a fan of a guy whoring around as well. I'm not a fan of a son taking women's virginity, saying what they need to say. So on the flip side, I've taught him, don't do that. Don't be that player. Don't steal women's soul and source for your pleasure. So I've taught him on the opposite end what you're not to be. I've taught him not to hurt women. I've taught him not to manipulate women. I have taught my son, really every life lesson that I wanted to share with him. I've taught him to stay away from drugs. I told him to watch his drinking. When we go out to a social setting, I still got my eyes on him. I'm like, whoa, hey now, hey yo boy. We've had quite a few of those, haven't we? You know, and then he gives the smirk like, she's always watching. Well, I'm always watching. And so I'm still, even though he's out of the nest, and he's on his own, and he's a young man, you know, living his own life, I still got my eyes on him, and I'm his mother till the day I die, and I'm going to teach the lessons that are necessary for him to grow to be the best, most productive man that he can be. But I've taught him from the flip side what not to do to hurt a woman, and what to do to be a great partner, and eventually a great father and a great husband, and to be a productive human being, so that eventually, at the end of the day, I want to look at both of my children and go, good job, you did it. You know, you raised them. And that's not to say my children are perfect, because they're not by all means, but they have had the lessons, they've got the tools, and they've got the curriculum at home if they want to thumb through the book.
There you go. Tell those young men watching this, what are some of the things that if they do it, they will be successful? Oh,
wow. Well, if a young man watching this episode wants to read books, self-help books, not do the video games. I mean, of course you can do the like sporting ones like hockey or basketball, or my son's got a race car driving one because he drives a car. Those are good. But the ones that kill, the ones that are fantasy world, the ones that take you down a dark spiral that you can't get out of your basement. Okay, bad news. Bad news. Like, I never allowed Miles to play video games growing up because his butt needed to be outside burning off energy and doing sports. So stay off of drugs. Don't hang with the crowd that's trouble. There's a lot of crowds growing up. There's the good crowd, there's the jocks, there's the nerds, there's the intellects. I mean, there's all sorts of people. But if you can do what I did and just start your own crowd, your own club of the successful club, the ones that want to make money, I would say to young men watching, go get a hobby and make money off of it. Do it yourself videos where you can get a following, and maybe people will pay you to do stuff. So be aware of your habits is what I say to kids. If you're drinking in high school, you're probably spiraling down. If you're smoking, you're already going down. If you're already doing drugs, you're going faster than the other guys. If you're sleeping with a different girl every weekend, okay, we're losing it. These are bad habits, okay? Those are not the people that are going to get to the upper echelon. Yeah, there's a lot of losers that have done all this that have succeeded, but the karma is always watching. And I'm a big believer that karma always catches up. And so put out good karma and good things will happen. That's what I would say.
Just to wrap this thing up, what would be your most powerful message for parents? Parent of a kid today, right now, what does that parent need to know?
Wow, you're asking such great questions, Pat. A parent today needs to know it can be your kid, it probably is your kid, and it has no reflection on you. What I would say is, do your job parenting your child. Have your eyes on what your child is doing. I watch who my kids' friends are. If that guy was trouble, I'd go right down the basement and say, why did he lie to me? Trouble, red flag, stay away from him. When my daughter was dating, I'd say, I didn't like that behavior in him. My daughter dates. Now, if I see the boyfriend drinking out of control, I tell her, red flag. I mean, we have these conversations. And she told him I said red flag, and he's like, Tana, did you say red flag? Yes, I did. My eyes are on you, Buster. You've got to be on everything. You've got to watch what they're doing, watch who they're spending time with, watch how they're spending their money, because you can be fooled. And I'm not one to ever think that my child couldn't do it, even though, like, they grew up with the manual. Like I said, we've gone the curriculum. That doesn't matter. So, and a lot of parents are guilty of feeling the pressure of society that they have to have perfect kids. And like, oh God, if anybody knew, let's sweep it under the carpet. No. No. If, put a sign in your front yard saying, I got an alcoholic that's living here. Whatever you have to do to embarrass these kids to maybe shake them out of the syndrome that they're in. And then one other thing that I believe parents need to do is let your kids stew in their own juices when they make mistakes. I know one time, Miles made a mistake and I could have easily solved it and, one phone call, done, problem, you don't have to worry about it. You're my son, my first child, firstborn, hashtag, Italian mom, whatever it is. But no, he needed to stew in his own juices. And so I'm like, figure it out, big boy. You got this. You got yourself in this mess. Figure it out. And it kills a parent to not help, especially if you have the resources, if you have the money, if you have the brains, if you have the connections, if you have the network. You can solve so many problems. But I have learned that I will not make excuses or make my child's life easier if they want to be a mess up. And parents are fixing kids' problems, and I think that the best thing you could do is let them sow in their own oats and stew in their own juices, and they'll rise above it.
Well, Tana, I want to really, really thank you for doing the interview today. You've really done some tremendous sharing here today.
The only thing I was going to say was to do that first part again, because I think we had everybody else address the camera directly, and she was addressing. I kind of had that in the back of my head the whole time.
So I'm Tana Gertz, and I'm here to save a life?
Yep.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'm Tana Gertz, and I'm here to save a life.
Hooray! There we go.
Yay!
Man, you wear me out. It's like
That was so awesome.
she's like doing it like I don't have no idea how long we went, but that would seem like just nonstop.
Hour and 3.
An hour and 3. Whoa.
Whoa.
Hey.
There's
Well,
a lot
I
of
didn't want
gems in there.
All right.